Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Composed Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Gaffney. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I'm very excited about, something that I encourage all artists to participate in to some degree, and that is critiques. A critique can happen between two people. You can just put your work in a text and text it to a friend and get feedback, or it can be more of a group setting. When I was a graphic design major in college, we did this all the time. We would work on a project together, and then at certain points in the process, like at the midway point, and then when the deadline was for the project, we would put our work on the wall side by side, the whole class, and then step back and observe and kind of form thoughts and pieces of feedback to share with the artists whose work we were critiquing one at a time. And then whenever it came time to have our work critiqued, we would receive what observations were made by the other students. The whole point of it is to provide an outside perspective and feedback that maybe you hadn't thought about. That's what I love about critiques. And there is a difference between when you think about the job of live wedding painting. The job is not just the creation of the painting, okay? Because usually in academic settings and studio settings, an artist has an endless timeline to create the painting. They can take their time, they can put it aside and kind of think about it, assess it, make changes. You have more liberty to make decisions and then correct those decisions and make better decisions. And then there's just more time, less pressure. In a live painting setting, you have a very short amount of time, in under a day, oftentimes between 4 and 6 hours, the length of the event. Okay. And not only are you under an incredible time crunch, but you're standing or you're in and kind of a mobile setting. You have a mobile studio set up. You're limited to the supplies that you've brought. You can't take you don't have the luxury of time to be able to take breaks, to rest your body, to rest your mind. The decisions have to come very quickly and very fluidly and very confidently. And they have to, I mean, the success of the painting depends greatly on the decisions that you make. So when you show a painting, like a finished painting, the and then you show it to a group of artists or another artist, and you say, give me some feedback. What do you think? I think that for live painters, we benefit greatly from when we share the experience of the process of creating the painting, and we take into consideration all of the outside elements that are at play when the work is being created. So in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about what a critique is, why it's important, and how a critique on a live wedding painting or a painting that was created in a live performance kind of way, how that should be considered differently than maybe a studio piece or a studio project or an academic critique, things like that. So if you're interested in learning about critiques or hearing, or this is something that you are like, ooh, yeah, let's talk about that, then buckle up because this is going to be a fun episode. Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self-improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic today because we are in the heat of the Wedding Painter's Blueprint. Okay, the course, the last couple of episodes, we were talking heavily about the excitement of the course being open for enrollment, and that enrollment period was like 10 days long. It's closed now, and we have our class full of students. We have students from all around the world, like 6 different countries this year. So that is no pressure on me at all. But it really is an honor. It's an honor to be able to help artists in every walk of life, wherever they are around the world, and just share what I know and watch them excel, watch them propel forward in their career. So that's been really fun. But something that we just hosted for the first time was our weekly live critique, our group critique. And I had recorded a demonstration, like a live Zoom call demonstration, and I hosted one and then did not record it. So typically within the course, we record the live calls so that those who are in different time zones or their schedules don't allow them to attend the live calls, they can watch the recording and still benefit from what was shared in the call. Well, there was a technical issue and that episode was not recorded, that demonstration. So I did really want to repeat the message and give people an idea of what was said. So I decided to do that here in an episode in the podcast. And then also, this is a gift to all of my listeners, is that you're privy to something that I share within the course to an extent, right? So we just hosted our first official group critique. We tried to keep it to an hour. Of course, I went over. I asked if people had extra time and wanted to critique a few more pieces, and we did. And it was life-giving. It's so fun. I really enjoy it because it's a very positive experience. And even if there's something very concrete that I share that can be improved on, you have an assignment, like you have home, like this is it. It's clear and obvious how to improve this. Go go practice in the studio, go practice at your next job. And so for me, that's almost like if I were to receive feedback like that, like, oh, your ears are too small on all of your portraits. That's something that I can eat. That's like almost a hack. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you. You fixed the problem. I just have to implement that suggestion. So that's why I like critiques, because it's like something that I may not have seen or been able to see for however long I've been working. And another artist just kind of peeks at my work and makes an observation. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, that makes perfect sense. I see it now. And this is going to improve. Your feedback is going to help me improve my style moving forward. And I love that. I love the opportunity. And it is an opportunity. I don't have to, if I think, oh, I think my ears are perfectly fine. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't have to take that feedback. It is up to me. And so no harm, no foul, no hurt feelings. No, it is no inflated ego. It's just a opportunity to give and receive feedback. So I really love group critiques for that reason. Hey, live wedding painters, have you taken a minute to evaluate your business yet? Have you started to think about next year yet? As this year comes to a close, it's important for each of us to take a moment and reflect. Did you hit the goals you set for yourself? Did you set goals at the beginning of the year at all? Was there any clarity in your vision for your creative business? Or have you just been hanging on for the ride? Now, imagine starting next year with a clear plan, a year where you're building a stellar portfolio and booking dream weddings, showing up with confidence and taking bold steps toward your career goals. That's exactly what my goal setting workbook is here to help you achieve. Created for the members of my online course, The Wedding Painter's Blueprint, the Goal Setting Workbook is more than just a place to jot down ideas. It is your roadmap to success for the year ahead. With guided evaluations, you'll identify your unique personal and professional challenges. You'll address physical and psychological elements that might be holding you back. And you will set clear, achievable goals and map out the steps to reach them so you can turn your vision into reality. This workbook is free to download and print so you can physically write down your goals. It includes tools to help you track your growth and adjust as needed, and will actually help you take vague dreams and turn them into concrete plans. and turn those plans into real success. Next year doesn't have to feel uncertain. The goal setting workbook will help you take charge of your career and step into the new year with purpose and direction. Click the link in the show notes to download your free version of my goal setting workbook and kick 2025 off with clarity. Now, you may be asking, what is a critique? Like, what is it? What is it? How is it defined? Critique is defined as a detailed analysis or assessment of something. And the dictionary goes on to say, especially a literary, philosophical, or political theory. That means that really, really smart people, not just artists who are like, look at my painting and tell me what you think, intelligent, philosophical thinkers share their ideas and open them to fellow philosophical thinkers, and then they have conversations, they make assessments, and they offer feedback on those ideas. Everyone does this. I feel like some people call it a critique and they put a label on it and they make it part of their routine, part of their process. But I believe intelligent thinkers are show their wisdom in asking for advice and opinions of others, and then they take that or leave it, right? So I think it shows great intelligence to take a piece, even if you think it's really good, show it to somebody. Like I said earlier, you can have a friend, you can have like an artist friend or even a creative friend, maybe not even a painter, maybe a writer that you know, or a photographer, somebody with a creative eye or a creative mind. Share the piece and say, what do you think? Is there any way that I can improve this? Or look at my last three pieces. Is there anything that is looking kind of like a consistent pattern that isn't working that maybe I don't see? Ask these questions, and then be quiet, and see what they have to say. And if you don't have just one friend that you can ask, join a painting group, or join a Facebook group, or find a group of like-minded individuals or people in your industry, like live wedding painters, for example, and put your work, quote unquote, on the wall and ask for feedback. And you could share reference photos. You can say, oh, I ran out of time and I don't know at what point I lost the pace, or I ran out of time and I don't usually run out of time. Do you have any tips for improving speed in when you're painting, things like that? Like, ask questions and then see what people have to say. Sometimes you get a really, really good critique, like a light bulb moment response from somebody, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's incredibly profound and so simple. I can make that change today. And then I know for a fact my work will improve, my confidence will improve, my speed will improve. This is wonderful. Thank you. And then do that for others. Like, share observations with others whenever they ask, right? And then sometimes you may just get like 21 little likes or loves, and like, oh, this is beautiful, and no critique at all, but positive feedback, which, is also kind of nice every now and then. Typically, if you feel like something is off about the painting, or you feel uneasy or not confident in a certain area, and you point that out, then people who are observing the piece, understanding that you're looking for advice in this area, they may be more willing to offer like actionable critique, constructive criticism, which, if you're asking for it, then consider what they're saying. Like, this is so helpful. This is so helpful. It is hard. It requires humility. It requires thick skin in the way that you are not thinking that if somebody makes a suggestion for improvement, that they think they are better or more talented than you, or that you are so far a beginner or so undeveloped. There's no judgment. We're just talking about the work, And again, my paintings, the degree of detail and accuracy, and even just the degree of completion at the end of a wedding, fluctuates, and has fluctuated over the past decade that I've been a live wedding painter, because the elements outside of the painting itself, the weather, the space that I'm given, the lighting that I'm given to work in, the conditions that I'm working in, fluctuate and change. And so sometimes when I'm asking for critique, it's more like the perspective in the room. It has more to do with the conversations I have with my client beforehand. That's incredibly valuable. Like if I'm struggling to make a certain decision when it comes to the composition, sometimes I need to be told, hey, ask your bride ahead of time. Make it part of your questionnaire to confirm the details of the painting. I like to call them the creative details. Do you want to be, when I ask my clients, when you're thinking of the finished painting hanging in your home, do you want to be large on the canvas, or do you want to feel small in a huge space? And that has a lot to do with the venue. But if you ask, the bride typically has an idea. Whether they've seen a painting I've done or someone else has done, they have a sense of, oh, I want it to be like a portrait. I want it to be us. I want you to capture all the lace in my dress and then put us in a room. Like that's their priority. And then sometimes it's the complete opposite. Oh my gosh, I really don't care. Even if you can see my face, I'm going to have tons of pictures. I really love this venue. I love the detail and the architecture of the ceiling, that kind of thing. And then they'll say that, and then boom, you don't have to make that decision when you get there. It makes your job easier, and you can jump right into the painting much faster. So critique can come in many forms. You can there's multiple ways to ask for critique as well. You can or not multiple there's multiple ways to host a critique. So sometimes we put our work on the proverbial wall, and the teacher or the somebody who's leading the critique will dive right in with feedback, just start sharing thoughts, and then we'll encourage the other students or the other participants to start sharing their thoughts, and then the artist whose work it is has the opportunity to either agree or defend their work in a way. And then, so that's kind of a cold read critique is when the class talks first or the teacher talks first. And then the other is the other like option there. I guess there's more, but the two that come to my mind is when the artist who's presenting the work is able to introduce the work, introduce their theory, introduce their mission, introduce the objective and any obstacles, and like ask for, say, something's off about the proportions of the face. I see that, but what is it? Because I can't figure it out. There you go. Then the observers have the opportunity to address those, to react to that request for feedback, to react to that story and that process, and then just kind of respond, right? So when I host my group critiques within the Wedding Painters Blueprint, typically they're hosted live on a Zoom call, and we have about an hour to get through as many as we can. And an hour is never long enough. Oh my gosh. Especially because people are constantly submitting their work, which is wonderful. It's so great to see that and to see the willingness that my students have to get feedback. I love the intentionality. I love the sense of community, and then they're willing to share as well. So anyway, I digress. Typically we don't start with the artist introduction unless there's obvious questions, unless I'm like, ooh, tell us about this piece, because we need more information other than here's a finished painting. I have a couple of things that come to mind right away. Okay. But typically that's a little bit more time consuming because the artist will speak and share, and then sometimes that takes like 10 minutes, right? So to keep track of time, we kind of start with a cold read. We observe the piece for a little bit, maybe a minute, and then we start sharing feedback. And if I'm leading the critique, I'll share feedback first. Not because I know everything and my word is the only one that matters. My opinion is the only one that matters. Not because of that, but because I'm hosting the thing. People signed up to learn from me, and here's my feedback. Boom. And I love a compliment sandwich. I love a compliment sandwich. I love receiving a compliment sandwich. And I think it's an easy way to give something that may be like a piece of critique that may feel like you're pointing out a flaw. We don't want that to be received like, oh yeah, the ears are too small. So I'll say, I first of all love your use of color, like the way you've mixed the colors. This is really expertly done. The one thing that does point at that jumps out to me that may feel like proportionately off is the ear. But otherwise, I mean, God, look at the lace on this gown, something like that. Okay. So that's what I like to do. Not everybody's like that. And not everybody really enjoys that. Some people really are like, just cut it. Give me the critique. So I think that is a sign of a considerate, I guess, group leader. So if you're going to share critique or be in a group with someone, I would suggest that you get a sense of the room, because, oh my gosh, let's say you offer critique out the gate and then the artist is like, oh, dang, I didn't know you thought that. Okay. And then they like reel it in and they tighten up and they put a wall up and then they don't want to share anymore. I think that we should be more like sensitive, especially when we're getting in the groove of these group critiques. That's something I would consider, that I would suggest that you get a feel for first before you really break the ice and become really good friends, get to know each other and each other's love languages and things like that, the way that people talk or share advice or ask for advice, or honestly, you will get to know people's like insecurities, and then you can be more transparent or more sensitive whenever necessary. If you're going to be in a critique group with somebody, or you're going to be in a friendship or some sort of situation where you meet with this person regularly, I think that's more beneficial than popping in different groups and not forming any kind of connections, because the people in the group will get to know you and your process and your desires and your mission and your style more intimately, and they'll be able to offer more pointed, more intentional advice and critique moving forward. Like, that is, I guess it's like a relationship with a therapist. Like, you can cut through over time, you can cut through the pleasantries and like really dive into what's going on. If I know that an artist prefers to use smaller brushes because that's their process, I'm not going to keep, I mean, I may suggest that they use bigger brushes at first, but that you just get to know people and their everything, their processes, their insecurities. If I know an artist, here's a better example. If I know an artist prefers not to paint faces, and so has created this style or is kind of pursuing this style where the faces are less detailed, but they're trying to achieve likeness in a way, then that helps me to, I guess, stop trying to get them to paint like me, where I like to paint facial features. And I'm like, okay, how can I help you achieve your style better? I know that C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were in a literary group called the Inklings. They created a critique group, essentially, where they would get together and exchange ideas and get feedback on current projects, current books. And I think that that's fascinating. And they wrote, I mean, they were both intelligent authors. I love both of their works, but they both had different styles of writing and they both had different objectives. And similarly, they were authors, but they they were able to offer critique and advice and feedback and encouragement and suggestions for each other throughout the process of their working careers. And so I think it shows intelligence, it shows wisdom to ask for help and to ask for feedback and to not assume that you know everything and that nobody can help you improve upon what you currently know. I think that shows great strength. And you may have heard me talk about my little side business, my little fine art print shop. I create an original painting, I take a photo of it, and I print it, and I print it again and again and again. I make hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars a year on prints. It's so easy. And I learned everything I know about creating my own prints and printing them in-house from Laurie Ann Gonzalez and her Art to Print course. I highly recommend, if you are an artist and you want to make easy money from your original works and even the commission works, you can resell those as prints. I recommend you check out Art to Print. Laurie Ann has a very direct way of teaching, and you are really going to appreciate her no fluff method of giving you information and telling you exactly what you need to do to make making fine art prints in your own studio a breeze. You can check her out online at learn.laurieannart.com. That's learn at LaurieAnnart.com. art.com, or just click the link in the show notes for my affiliate link. Check her out and thank me later. So how do live wedding painting critiques differ from other regular old group critiques or academic critiques, things like that? Well, typically you have a group of students who have the same or similar assignments. They have similar criteria for the assignment, and they have a timeline to create the piece in the comfort of their own home in their own studio, basically at their own pace. And then you can hold the critique in the middle of the process to do like an in progress critique, just to be able to catch them before they're completely finished, and then reassess or change direction a little bit, or just kind of make decisions now that may improve the final product, or a finished critique where we're all looking at finished projects here. And the advice that's offered during these critiques, I think, is considerate of the fact that the creative is working at their own pace in the comfort of their own home. They're working under very controlled conditions, and they have the luxury of time to make different decisions and step back and look at the piece, and do more research ahead of time. Like there's so many luxuries in the process of creating studio work. Live painting is very different. The conditions under which the work is created, much more high pressure. Oh my goodness. If anybody listening has done a live painting or created something in front of a group of individuals in kind of a performance way, understands that the process is very different, and the resulting painting is comes out different, fun, authentic, organic, fluid. Like there's good to it. I don't want to say it's not as good as a studio piece. Frankly, I love my live paintings. I love what I'm able to create in a short amount of time under such pressure and duress. But when offering critique or offering feedback, I think that we need to consider all of the conditions and the elements that are outside of your control, before just saying, the proportions are off. You can talk about that, and those decisions can be adjusted and improved upon. But I think that the conversation needs to be a little deeper, and that's what I encourage inside the course. And that's what a lot of live painters do, kind of on their own in Facebook groups and in friend groups. When they're talking about it, it's like, yeah, here's the painting, but it was snowing. Or, yeah, here's the painting, but I had to stop and relocate and work from photo references. So I couldn't observe the right colors. I couldn't observe the lighting and the value, the contrast in values, in the mountains off in the distance. I just had the photo or the video that I took on my phone. That was the only reference I had. And they cut it short by an hour. The reception ended an hour early, and I'm trying to finish on time, and so I quickened my pace. I think that those things should be considered when it comes to critiquing a live painting. Okay? Are you still using cheap art supplies? Look, you don't have to tell me, but if you want to level up, you have to use better supplies. Come on, let's invest a little. I've been using Rosemary and Company for my paintbrushes for the past 5 years or so, and I have never thrown away one of these brushes. The quality is unmatched, and they're like reasonably priced. I hate to say it, but they're the best. So I love a long handled paintbrush. Okay. I love a hog hair or an ivory, which is kind of a mixed bristle hair. And Rosemary and Company, they have like so many options. So I would check them out. The website is www.rosemaryandco.com. That's Rosemary spelled Rosemary and co.com. Or you can just click the link in my show notes and it'll take you directly to my personal wish list. It's all the brushes that I use and recommend. So check them out and thank me later. Another very important thing to consider when critiquing someone's work is the direction or requests that was given to them, the parameters given to them by their client. You're not exactly copying from a photo. Many times you have to make artistic decisions about perspective, or what elements in the room are more important or provide more balance in the composition. A lot of artists enter a room and have to basically paint the objects in the room in a way that feels very harmonious in the painting, considering the fact that there's going to be a portrait in there as well. If there are no floral bouquets in on the tables, all the floral budget was spent on the ceremony setting, but the bride really wanted her florals. How are you going to implement those details in this painting? If the bride has requested for like a combination of elements from different rooms, how are you going to do that in a way that doesn't make the painting look like a collage, like a pinboard collage? How are you going to make it look like one cohesive painting? So these are good questions to ask your fellow artists when they put a piece up for a review and up for critique. Ask what did the client want here. Let's bring that into the conversation. What was the objective? Because that influences some of the feedback that you may have. Sometimes the feedback that you have is asking more clarifying questions in the communication process before the painting. Like, the painting is great. You achieved what they asked for, or you achieved something really, really impressive considering the fact that they didn't give you any direction, but they were really picky and critical of certain things. And so sometimes the painting technique or skill level or decisions isn't necessarily the problem. What could improve the experience of creating the painting or the experience of their work as a live painter is the communication process with the client, or what's agreed upon in the contract, things like that. Are you charging by the hour? Are you charging by the canvas size? Are you charging by the person? And how are you achieving what you set out to do, what project you both agreed on? How are you politely declining change requests by the guests, things like that? Like, these are all of these things can be considered in the critique. That obviously this isn't an issue for studio artists. It's just, how did you do the painting, and what happened in your head? Typically studio paintings, the decisions happen in your head, in the quiet of your own head. And so the questions that are asked are directed to the artist, and the artist can answer based on their experience. It's just one person making the decisions, and then everything is within the artist's control. At a wedding or at another event, when you're basically performing, many elements are outside of the artist's control. So what elements can be controlled? If you created a painting outside and it was so humid that the paint wasn't drying, and it seriously affected your layering process and completely threw off your groove, and the painting at the end of the night didn't feel like your other paintings in your portfolio because the layering process was different. You had to paint it differently, and it was incredibly frustrating. You can't control the weather, but how do you control where you're set up next time? Can you make the decision to move indoors? That kind of thing. Like, these are great questions and great considerations to make when you're having a conversation with a live wedding painter. Okay. Because if you're a live wedding painter, these are things that you're considering yourself. These are some concerns that you have. Proportions also. Many artists don't maybe grid out their canvases. Maybe they don't do a very controlled, detailed preliminary drawing before they start painting. Maybe they have to jump right into the painting with less consideration for proportions and the accuracy in the figures. So how can you suggest for improvement in that kind of area? One thing that I like to consider is lighting. Do you have an obvious light source? And is it dramatic and effective, or is it just really super bright and the shadow is not in the right direction, or this shadow isn't intense enough to give the full effect of the direct light? Or are there conflicting light sources and shadows? Like, these are things that with time you will be able to observe in the painting, and either it's done really well or that can be improved on. And if the artist doesn't know to think about light source, or receptions, typically the lighting is absolutely insane and is constantly changing. So how do you commit to a light source and then execute it with multiple reference photos and looking out and the light is changing? How do you make those decisions? Maybe you can offer advice on that matter. Maybe just having an outside perspective from an artist who's done it and who's doing it as well, and who's in that environment as well. I think we can all grow not only from receiving feedback, but from sharing feedback. Maybe you have painted lighting accurately. You see that in your work and you recognize it when it's not executed as well in someone else's work, and you want to help them grow in this area, but you've never verbalized your process. Think about that. When you offer critique, when you participate in a critique, you basically stretch a muscle in your brain. You have to tap into a part of your brain where you verbalize an abstract concept. You verbalize a process that you do kind of automatically on your right side brain, your creative brain, and flowing through your hand. And this is kind of a natural action for you or decision for you. But verbalizing how you do it and why it's important, it takes, that's a skill that can be developed. And so I know I have learned so much about my painting process by trying to teach people my painting process. So participating in a critique as a participant, as somebody who's sharing the feedback and the critique, it will help you grow as an artist, 100%. Now, everybody inside the Wedding Painter's Blueprint this year, and also years past, because when you sign up for my course, you have access, lifetime access, and you can always rejoin for newer, current live calls. You get the updates if I update the course, all of those wonderful things. But we have the opportunity to host and participate in creative critiques inside the course. If you're not in the course, but you want this goodness as well, I encourage you to reach out to a friend of yours who's a painter or a creative or a live painter, and create either a small group or a text chain or some sort of regular source, a regular meetup point, a regular meeting, meet up in person, go to your studio one week and my studio the next week. If you operate well with like in person and with this one person who's local to you, get on Zoom calls, join a Facebook group. There are free and open to the public live painting groups on Facebook all over the place. I'm a member of at least 4, okay? And everybody there, this community is a very generous and encouraging and inspiring community. It's not, I've heard people describe the industry, people who are not in the industry, people who are vendors or in the wedding industry maybe. I've heard us as wedding painters be described as cutthroat recently, in fact. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure we're talking about the same people? Because I'm pretty sure that the majority of us are so, I don't want to say desperate, but are so desperate for this sense of community and this sense of shared experience with other people, because what we do is so challenging. The ask, like what is being asked of us, the performance element, the the high pressure, and literally you're creating a painting and under duress, under the pressure of time, the pressure of observation and judgment by strangers, and you've been paid to do this job and you have to do it well, and it has to be unique and inspiring, and it has to be a masterpiece and the best thing you've ever done. The stakes are very high. This is someone's wedding day, for goodness sakes. Like, you cannot mess up. This cannot be like, that one wasn't my best, but maybe the next one will be better. Stakes are too high for that, right? So I think that I know for a fact I am hungry for conversation with other artists who understand what I'm talking about. If somebody asks a question in a group because they're experiencing a problem for the first time, and I've experienced that issue over the years, I jump right in. I'm like, oh, I have an answer for that. Here's what I've done in the past. I hear you. I'm sorry you experienced that, but here's the clause in my contract. I did that today. Somebody had an issue with a client not liking their painting style, and I was like, that conversation is a clause that's included in my contract. Here's the verbiage. Use it. It's, I do this and then many other artists do this as well. And then when I have a problem or I have a question, or if I have a referral, I'll drop that into a group. And then I've got people from all over the country and outside of the country jumping in and saying, here's some feedback. Here's my advice. Here's my experience. And then, or yeah, I'll take that job, send them my information. It's a very wonderful community. That's been my experience. I think those artists who are more cutthroat and kind of holding things closer to the chest, I think that they are missing out on the opportunity for being an authentic recipient, like sharer and recipient of kindness and generosity and information and encouragement. And so I would encourage you to be a generous member of the community, because it is a beautiful one. I love it. I love the job and I love the community. And that's why the community is such an integral part of my online course. That's what I teach other artists. Well, that wraps up our episode today, all about critiques, what they are, why they're important, and why I highly recommend them. I recommend them for creatives in all walks of life, and I recommend them especially for live wedding painters. I would not be the artist that I am today without the guidance and mentorship and encouragement and inspiration from other artists in the world. Okay. If you're interested in joining the Wedding Painters Blueprint and receiving everything that we have to offer, please join the wait list, because we will be opening the doors again in the spring of 2026. And while you wait for doors to open, go ahead and join one of the Facebook groups that exist. I will link a couple of my favorite Facebook groups for live wedding painters, and just check them out. They're free to join. They're open to the public, and they're a wonderful resource. And it's a wonderful community for other artists out there who are open to feedback and open to critique and open to sharing critique and wanting to grow. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed it, please tell a friend, share this episode with somebody, share it on Instagram, and then leave us a review. Let us know what you think. Give us 5 stars. What the heck? It would really help. It would help spread the word about this podcast and about what we are doing here, what we're sharing for artists. And it would just mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this.